Good morning. It's Sunday with the cows, and I'm on a hill outside of Nashville coming to you today. It's been raining a little bit this morning, but now the sun's trying to pop out. We need some rain here on the farm. The grass has been nibbled down to a nub by all the cows, so we welcome rain, and we welcome you to Sunday with the cows this morning. And my new book is out. Just got this one in the mail. I haven't received all the copies that I need to mail out yet, so hopefully they're going to be in the mail next week, but this is an author copy that they sent to me, and I know Amazon has gotten a shipment, so they've been shipping some out ahead of me. So just know, if you order from me, it's going to be autographed. That's a good thing, and it's going to come to you maybe next week late. And thank you so much for buying one. If you haven't bought one yet, please do so. You can go to my website and get your copy, and it's all about my life, how I got from way back there to right here on this hill. It's an interesting life, and it talks a lot about the farm. It talks about me and the years that I worked at Decatur Morgan West Psych Hospital and doing the writing class for suicidal adolescents. It's all in here. So it's a good read, so I hope you'll pick one up. And as you know, the Gospel According to Cows is still out. We made 500 of these. These are handmade right here in America. And on the back you'll see it has what number, limited edition of 500, and it's a 60-day devotional. So get you one. Look how they've stitched it up in the middle. These are beautiful books, and they're all about how cows can teach us about the gospel. So if you want to know about cows, this is the book for you. If you want to know more about the gospel and cows, this is definitely the book for you. But I hope you pick up a copy. Go to my website as well to get one of these, and it will be signed to you. So God bless you. Let's get started this morning. It's good to have you back. The sun's trying to pop out here a little bit. It's a little windy, so maybe my pages won't blow off. But Jill came to me last summer, and she said to me, "Do you want to make a quick and easy $500? Now, I've been married to Jill since 1982, and I've heard a lot of these schemes over the years. One time when we lived in Decatur, old Decatur, the girls and Jill were going to have a yard sale. So that Friday they got all their stuff together and they put it out in the yard. And they decided by looking at everything that they were going to make about $400. So that night, that Friday night, they went to TJ Maxx and spent that $400 on clothes. So the next day they had their yard sale and they made $40. So I went in the hole, $360. But I think really Jill took some of those clothes back and got her money back. So I've been down this road before. I've heard those kinds of stories. I've watched how they played out. And so when she came to me last summer and said, we can make a quick and easy $500, I was a little leery. And then she said, we could enter the Buffalo River Resort River Rampage, which is a day of great excitement. They have cornhole contests, they have duck thing contests, I don't know what they do with those, but they have a homemade float contest where you make your homemade float and you put in down at the river, way down, about 2 miles down, and whoever gets to our property basically down here under the bridge first wins, and you win $500. And I was listening because the year before we just happened to be down at the river. We didn't know anything about the Buffalo River Resort River Rampage, but we were down at the river, and we happened to see the end of the race and noticed that there were only 2 contestants in the race. So I thought to myself, well, the worst thing we can do is finish third. The best thing we can do is that those 2 don't show up anymore and we get first. And so I said, okay, Jill, I'll help you build a homemade raft and we'll enter this contest and see what happens. And so this is what we built. I'll show you a little video of it. Okay, here we are. We got the float, first maiden voyage. We got Graham helping us out here to see if it'll float, and Jill. Now, it's not the greatest homemade raft. Tom Sawyer probably wouldn't be impressed with this thing, but I figured, hey, it's going to at least get third place. I didn't want to put a whole lot of time and effort into it. And so the day happened. Buffalo River Resort River Rampage Day arrived, and we went down to where they were putting in. We signed up, gave them our money. I forget how much it was, maybe $40. And they started rolling in. One boat after another boat after another boat after another boat until that place was packed. The word had gotten out that there were only 2 contestants in last year's contest, and if you just show up in Lobelville, Tennessee, you might win an easy $500. And when they started unloading those boats, the hopelessness set in like, oh my gosh, we just threw away $40. And all this time putting together this homemade raft, which I did spend about $5 for each inner tube. So here's how they, this is how they unloaded, and this is the competition. Take a look. Now, you can see why our hopelessness set in, because we knew at that moment when we saw that one boat, there are others that were even better than that one, that we were sunk. The best we could do would be to finish last place, which would be 10th, but we did better. We finished 9th. So I want to talk this morning about competition, about hopelessness, about how we sit in the world and we look out upon it and we realize that everything is stacked against us sometimes. The competition is stiff. People have a whole lot more money and a whole lot more know-how to build a boat than we do. And we just say to ourselves, there's no way that we're ever going to get out of this situation that we're in. And sometimes we can feel stuck. And this man we're going to talk about today, he felt stuck, and he felt stuck for 38 years. Let's read John 5, 1 through 8. Sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now there is in Jerusalem, near the sheep gate, a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed, and one who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" "Sir," the invalid replied, "I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." Then Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your mat, and walk." At once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and he walked. Now this pool in Bethesda was an interesting thing. Basically what happened, it had the invalid, the sick, all of these people who needed to be healed there just kind of lying around the pool waiting for an angel to come and graze the water. And once the angel grazed the water, the first one in would get a healing. So it was almost like hitting the lottery. And you can just imagine what it's like. You know, they're all just kind of there, and then all of a sudden the angel comes out of nowhere. And I don't know how frequent this happened. You know, did it happen weekly? Did it happen monthly, yearly? Who knows? We don't know. But the angel would come down and graze the water, and whoever got in first got their healing. It was a mad dash to the water. Can you imagine all the joints popping and the sick and the dying coming to life, and this is their chance to get their healing? And each time it happened, toes straining to the water, those carrying, some of those just maybe tossing people into the water. And each time it was a photo finish. It was, you know, whoever got the healing in 1/100th of a second. It was a photo finish. You'd have to go back to see who who got the win. But maybe the way they got to see who was healed was they would come up out of the water with water dripping from their noses, and they would look around to see, okay, did I get it? Did he get it? Who got it? It was a photo finish every time it happened. And maybe this man had someone to bring him there in the beginning. In the first few days and weeks, they stayed right with him, and eventually they saw how tough the competition is. And they had to say to him, hey, look, we got to go back to our homes and our jobs, and we wish you well. Who knows how this man wound up there for 38 years? But we do know that he had to be hopeless. And I'm talking to some people today where you've been in certain situations for so long that you're hopeless. You're hopeless to ever find a mate. You're hopeless to ever get over this condition of your health. You're hopeless in finding that job that will really make you happy. You're hopeless in the fact that finances are not what they need to be, and they probably won't ever be because you can't find the job that you need to get to be better. And so you've just given up. And you've said to yourself, there's no need in trying. There's no way that I'm going to get out of this. When I was interviewed with the Decatur Daily this past week, and I was talking to her, and I told her about she wanted to know about my college, Middle Tennessee State University, how I got in. And I said, well, the reason I got in was because I had to take a test. And that test was basically for someone who was at my age, 26, and been out of high school for a while. So they wanted to test you just to see what you knew. And so I remember going there and sitting down in that room, that big room with 50 people in there, and thinking to myself, I am not in the right place. This is not me. This is not where I need to be. I can't do this, And I sat there and I looked around, but I went ahead and went through with it. And one of the things they had in there is they wanted you to write a little paragraph, a little essay type paragraph. And so I did. Had some math, other stuff like that. Finished that day and I went home, and then waited in the mail to see what Middle Tennessee State University was going to say about my being entered there. And I found out that I flunked writing, reading, and basic math. So I had to take basic reading, basic writing, and basic math. I'm talking division. I'm talking no algebra, nothing. And so for a year and a half, I had to go take remedial classes at Middle Tennessee State University. And do you know how embarrassing it is to go and do something like that? But I had to swallow my pride, and I did it. Or I could just sit there and believe that it's hopeless. And now I told them in the interview that I have on my wall, the sheet where I entered that class, basic writing, and I have it circled, and it's on my office wall, so that when I get rejected, or even when I publish a book, I can look back up there and know that I didn't give up. Don't give up on your dreams. Yes, you may be delayed right now. It may take you 38 years to get where you want to be. The book that I wrote that just came out, I've been writing it for 20 some odd years. Even when I went to Queen's University of Charlotte and got an MFA, some of the material in that book was presented there in class. And if you've ever been to a writing class, you sit down and you read your work, and then everybody talks about it, and you can't say anything. So I've heard a lot of comments about the writing over the years. Some of them have been published in literary magazines. But I'm 57 years old. And to be 57 years old and just now putting together a book that might be a better seller than anything I've done before is to know that I had to wait a long time, and I had to make the writing better, because I'm not in a big church. I don't have a big platform, and the only thing they look at when you're a Christian publisher is how many people do you have in your audience, and I didn't have a whole lot of people. But I had to make the writing better, and I kept working on it. So for 20 years, this book's been waiting to be published. So don't give up even though your hopes have been dashed lately, you got to persevere. You got to stay on the mat. And this man stayed on the mat. Whatever you can say about his hopelessness, he stayed on the mat. He kept himself in position to get this healing. So stay on the mat today. So that's my first thing I want to say to you. Now, Will Rogers said, people change, but not that much. I think he means that we can get stuck, and being stuck, we don't really change too far out of being stuck. I think it's true for this man. So what makes us hopeless? We invent an excuse. What makes us hopeless? Number one, we invent an excuse. We invent a story about why we can't change. In John 5:7, he said, "Sir," the invalid replied, "I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." This had been his story for 38 years. He doesn't even hear the question that Jesus asked him. Jesus didn't ask him, "Why haven't you been healed?" Jesus never comes to us and says, "Why haven't you been successful?" He comes to us and says, "Do you want to be made well?" There's a big, big difference, and that's what I want to talk about today. We can spend our lives answering the wrong question. And this man did. He never heard Jesus' question. He said, "Well, the reason I can't get down in the water, I don't have anybody to take me down there, and that's the reason I've been here for 38 years. This is my condition, so I can't be made well." See, Jesus never really said that to him. He just says, "Do you want to be made well?" So listen to what you're saying about your situation. Are we empowering those things to control us? Now here's the language. Let's talk about the language just for a second. Reactive language. There's nothing I can do. That's just the way I am. He makes me so mad. They won't allow that. I have to do that. I can't. I must. If only. If only that had not have happened to me. Now let's look at proactive language. Let's look at our alternatives. So kind of gives you, let's look at the lay of the land a little bit. I can choose a different approach. I control my own feelings. That's a good one. I can create an effective presentation. I would choose an appropriate response. I choose. I prefer. I will. Listen to your language and how it's affecting what you do. Are we empowering those things to control us? This man had made a story. He had given it so many times that, maybe he gave it even before Jesus finished his "Do you want to be made well?" Maybe he just blurted right out and said, "Well, wait a minute, let me tell you why I can't be healed. I don't have anybody to put me in the water." But Jesus doesn't ask that question. Stephen Covey talks about this in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He says there are two types of people: reactive people and proactive people. So I'm going to borrow a little bit from Covey today and talk to you about hopelessness and how you get out. The reason why you are hopeless right now is because you've been spending a life being reactive, like this man at the pool of Bethesda. Reactive people are driven by feelings, by circumstances, by conditions, and by the environment. And this man was. He basically said, the problem is not me, the problem is out there. That's the problem. If I could find somebody who could put me in the water, then I would be healed. So my problem is out there. And here's the key point. Stephen Covey writes in his book, anytime we think the problem is out there, that thought is the problem. We empower what's out there to control us, which means what's out there must change before we can change. So the man was saying, before I can be healed, then something else has to change, and it's the people that are not around me anymore. And maybe they left him. Maybe he never had anybody. I don't know how he got there. But he's turned all of this into his story of what he believes about himself, and he's become very reactive. And when we are being reactive, we absolve ourselves of responsibility. It's so much safer to say, I am not responsible. And this man for 38 years had learned that. I'm not responsible for what has happened to me. Basically, the man was saying, I'm not free to choose my own actions. The way to tell if you're hopeless is to listen to your language. Are you saying, I'm not free to choose my own actions? Now, proactive, on the other hand, number 2, proactive people. It means we are responsible for our own lives. Our behavior is a function of our decisions, not our conditions. Now, look at the word responsibility. And Covey says it's response, and then he kind of puts a hyphen there and says ability, or puts a dash there and says ability. Response, ability. What is your ability to respond? Proactive people understand that. How do I respond to the situations and the circumstances in my life? What is my ability to respond to that? And I had this, Jesus kind of always gives me the test during the week before I have to get up here and preach it, because I don't do too well. I failed miserably, by the way. But for 2 weeks, I've been reworking the hay pen down in the bottom here. And ever since I've been here, we have a gate that goes out and then up a hill. And when the rainy season hits, we just mire down in this mud. I get the tractor stuck. My dad got it stuck twice last year in the same hole, I may say. And I decided this year we're not going to do that anymore. I'm going to take the fence down on the other side of the hay pen, and I'm going to put a gate there, and it goes down, and there's a road there, so you have a lot of options. You can go down and place the hay over here, you can go up and place the hay over there, and so it gives us a whole lot more options, and hopefully we won't mire down in the mud. And so I worked hard because there were trees there, and I cut the trees down and cut each limb up and hauled them off. Worked hard for almost 2 weeks in the afternoons. Got it all fixed up. And my dad calls me on Wednesday and says, well, we need to move that hay, get it back over here across the river. As I've been telling you, we've got a bunch of hay that has to come across the bridge, and so we've been doing that. He said, but before we can, the cows are in the hay pen. I said, what are the cows doing in the hay pen? And the grass has gotten so bad around here, so we've been giving them hay for the first time ever. And my dad had let them down in that field where the hay pen is and forgotten that I had been working on that fence over there. So he says to me, we got to put this fence back up so they won't get in the hay pen. And I just kind of lost it. Now, first off, he made a mistake. How could he not be thinking, you cannot let the cows down there because we're working on the hay pen? And number 2, I've worked so hard to take this fence down and cut these trees up, and then you're going to just put a barbed wire fence back up without a gate. And I said, Dad, this is not going to work. I don't like this at all. And I got mad, and I was hammering down the T-post that he wanted me to put in the ground, just with all kinds of might. And he was saying, calm down, son, calm down. It's going to be all right. You see, I wasn't in control of my response. Later when I was telling Jill, because we always want a witness, don't we? We always want somebody to say, yeah, that was bad. You need to be, I can understand why you had that behavior. And I told Jill, and she said, turn your frown upside down. And she said it kind of like that, and it shocked me. I've never heard her say that before. Turn your frown upside down. And she wasn't going to buy into my pity party. And I let that situation control me because I felt like I had been not respected. I'd taken initiative to do something good, and it hadn't been respected, and so I wasn't in control of my response. He makes me so mad, I said. See, Jesus doesn't ask us, why haven't you been healed? Do you want to be healed? And that is part of our response to Him. Because when it all comes down to the end of the day, isn't it all about response, about how we respond to certain things that happen in our life? Turn your frown upside down. Maybe you need to do that today. I don't know. But that's what Stephen Covey is saying, and I think that's what Jesus is saying too, is what is your response if I made you well? What would be your response? How would you handle this? Because think of it. Here's this man who's been on this mat for 38 years, and give him a lot of kudos for that. Many of us would just have given up and gone off somewhere and gotten drunk and fallen off a cliff or something. But not this man. He stayed in position on his mat. So what Jesus was really asking him is, if I make you well, can you handle it? Because it means you're going to have to get a job. You got to pay rent. You're going to have to start getting along with people at this job. Your whole life is about to change. If I make you well, what will be your response? How will you handle this new life that I'm about to give you? And isn't that what happens in our own life? Jesus gives us a new life, and then we have to learn how to respond with this new life. And not respond with the old life like I did with my dad this past week, and it makes me so mad. So Jesus is saying, if I give you this new life, how are you going to respond with it? And the man never gets it. He thinks Jesus is asking him, why aren't you successful? And Jesus never asks that question. He's more interested in our response, our effort. So here's the key point. As Eleanor Roosevelt observed, no one can hurt you without your consent. Let me add to that. No one can change as long as you tell yourself you can't change. Are you giving someone consent to hurt you? Are you telling yourself you can't change? If you are, then you're just making an excuse. And you're being reactive and not proactive. Hopelessness is nothing more than the story you've made yourself believe. I don't have anyone to place me in the water. And you see, it was a totally different alternative, wasn't it? Because Jesus didn't even use the pool. The pool never came into play. He had a totally different alternative, and Jesus always has a totally different alternative for your life. Because at the pool, which is a representation of the world, there was competition. Not everybody gets healed. Sometimes we're relegated to the sidelines the way this man was, and maybe you've been relegated to the sidelines today, and you feel like you're just at home and you don't have any purpose ever. You're just relegated to the sidelines, and life is just not what it used to be. Don't buy into that story that you're not worth something. You never know who you're blessing. You never know who your kind words are speaking to, and you never know what you're reminding people of, or who you're reminding people of. So of course this man's response was based on the pool, and all of our responses in life have to be based on something beside this pool. And you see, he had no response. That was the problem. He had no response. He had a story. He had an excuse that he was giving. Whenever you're handed a challenge or you face a challenge, you must come to that challenge with a response. This is how I'm going to face this challenge. And you do it. Come here, Whitey. Come here. Come here, Whitey. Come here, baby. This is Whitey, y'all. Come on around here, girl. Come on. Come on. Come on right here. Everybody wants to see you. This is Whitey. And Whitey was, when I was first here, she was born out in the field, and she wasn't nursing well with her mama, big mama. And we used to try to tackle Whitey. Come here, Whitey. Whitey was so, come here, baby. Come here. She was so afraid of us. She would run from us. And now look at Whitey. You faced a challenge, didn't you, baby? You learned who the farmer is. And her response to me now is totally different than her response to me back then, which was to run anytime she saw me coming. Now she comes to me anytime she sees me. So what is your response? Jesus doesn't really respond to this man's excuse. But he does give him an opportunity to respond. And I think that's the opportunity I want to show you. This is what happened in the man's life that made it different. John 5:8. Then Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your mat and walk." At once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and he walked. Number one, rise. This would be the man's response. Get up. Get up. Stop staying in your hopelessness. You have to make a response. Jesus can't make the response for you. He can ask you and tell you to get up, but it's up to you to actually put your feet down and rise up. And believe that what you couldn't do before, now you can do, because he said to you, rise up. And you see, it's proactive. Response, ability. If you make a response, Jesus will give you the ability to do it. If you make a response, Jesus will give you the ability to do it. Think of the old children's song, Itsy Bitsy Spider. You going to sing it together? The itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun. I don't know how you do this. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. And the itsy bitsy spider went up the spout again. And here's the deal. If the sun can hold out just one more second, that spider is going to get up that water spout and be free. That man hung on for 38 years. He kept waiting for that moment that he could rise up. And it took the ability of God, but it takes the response. You have to do something to rise up. It's not going to be something that just saves you out of your doom and gloom out of nowhere. You must rise. Second thing is you got to pick up your mat. Now, I don't understand this one. It's kind of like if you see a homeless man and you say, okay, I'm going to give you a brand new home, and you give this man a brand new home and you hand him the key, but you say to him, now pick up your cardboard and bring it with you. That man doesn't need his cardboard anymore because he is now an owner of a home. He's no longer homeless. So I don't understand why he asked him to take up his mat. But when you start thinking about it, it was his past. It was his 38-year past. He had been on that mat. And now to pick up that mat and take it with him, he was taking a little bit of his past with him. And no matter who you are, you're going to take a little bit of your past with you that you have to struggle with. And it'll come out to be something all the time that comes back and we have to struggle with it. It comes back and we have to struggle with it. When he picked up his mat, an interesting thing happened to him. He walked right into the arms of the Pharisees, who basically said this in verse 9. The day on which this took place was the Sabbath, the day that Jesus healed him. And so the Jewish leaders said to the man who had been healed, "It is the Sabbath. The law forbids you to carry your mat." But he replied, "The man who made me well said to me, 'Pick up your mat and walk.'" To be made whole means we no longer walk according to the rules of the pool, no longer the rules of man, but we now walk according to the rules of Christ and what he commands us to do. Chick Mormon writes in Chicken Soup for the Soul about going to Donna's 4th grade classroom. Donna is the teacher, and it looked just like any other 4th grade classroom. Students sat in 5 rows of 6 desks, and the teacher's desk was up front looking out at the students. But he said there was something different about this class. It had a little bit of excitement to it. He didn't really understand why, and he went and he sat down next to a 10-year-old boy and looked over to see what the boy was doing, and he noticed that the 10-year-old was filling a page with "I can'ts." He was writing, "I can't kick the soccer ball past second base. I can't do long division with more than 3 numbers. I can't get Debbie to like me." And he noticed another little girl who her page was half full, And she was showing no signs of letting up, and she was writing this: I can't do 10 push-ups. I can't hit one over the left field fence. I can't eat only one cookie. Who can? And by this time, the activity had engaged Chick Moorman, and his curiosity is up. So he decided to ask Donna, exactly what was taking place. And he approached her, and he noticed that she was busy writing I can'ts too. And she was writing, I can't get John's mother to come in for a teacher's conference. I can't get my daughter to put gas in the car. I've had that problem. When all of the student papers were collected, Donna added hers to it. And so she stuck them in a shoebox and told the class to follow her outside. And so she marched them outside to the furthermost corner of the playground, and she started digging a hole. And all 31 of these 10, 11-year-olds school kids were there around her. She started to dig, and they were going to bury their I can'ts. And each had at least one page of I can'ts in the shoebox, which was now 4 feet under. And Donna had them join hands and bow their heads, and then she began to deliver the eulogy, and this is what she said. Friends, we gather today to honor the memory of I can't. While he was with us on earth, he touched the lives of everyone, some more than others. His name, unfortunately, has been spoken in every public building, schools, city halls, state capitals, and yes, even in the White House. We have provided I can't with a final resting place and a headstone that contains his epitaph. He is survived by his brother and sister, I can, I will, and I'm going to do it right away. They're not as well known as their famous relative and are certainly not as strong and powerful yet. Perhaps someday, with your help, they will make an even bigger mark on the world. May I can't rest in peace, and may everyone present pick up their lives and move forward. In his absence. Amen, she said. Donna took the kids to the classroom, and they had a party, and they made a tombstone that read, I can't, R.I.P., 3/28/80. And it hung there for the rest of the year. And on rare occasions when students forgot and they said, I can't, she would point to the tombstone and leave it at that. So, all Jesus wanted the man to do was to bury his I can't and see what happened. Maybe you need to do likewise. God bless you. Have a good week.